Hey there, and welcome to this explainer by Forge College. So, if you remember our last lesson, configure environment variables and basic settings, we basically laid down the plumbing for your local workspace without, flooding the house. Well, today we're picking up right where we left off. As part of our Introduction to Solana Development Environment module in the broader Solana Development Tools track, we are going to build your actual engineering blueprint for local testing. We'll look at exactly how testing fits into your broader development lifecycle. Okay, let's jump right in. Here is our quick diagnostic blueprint for today. First, your development diagnostic toolkit. Second, setup and network checks. Third, the fast local test loop. Fourth, fixing config versus code. And lastly, preparing for integration. All right, starting right off with Section 1, your development diagnostic toolkit. To keep you from tearing your hair out when things inevitably don't work on the very first try, we use a beautifully simple sequence of steps. This essentially maps out a local coding session running all the way from basic configuration down to transaction simulation. If you follow this exact order, you're practically guaranteed to find where your setup is breaking down instead of wasting hours debugging completely the wrong thing. Right at the center of this toolkit is your test validator. You can think of this as your own private, completely local blockchain network. It runs right there on your machine. You don't need real tokens. You definitely don't need a live internet connection to mainnet. And honestly, the best part? You get this absolute godlike power to just hit the reset button whenever you mess up. It is the perfect sandbox for iterative testing. Moving right along to Section 2, setup and network checks. Before we write a single line of code, we really need to know if the house actually has power, right? I mean, there's no point testing a light bulb if the grid is down. So we use 3 fundamental commands to ensure we're targeting the right local endpoint. Solana -- version just confirms your tools are actually installed. Solana config det ensures your RPC URL is pointing locally, usually to something like 127.0.0.1. And finally, Solana ping. Think of this as your heartbeat monitor. It tells you right away if that local validator is awake and replying. Now, imagine you fire up your terminal, you try to start your validator, and bam, you get this error: bind address already in use. So, is your code broken? Should you just throw your laptop out the window in frustration? Absolutely not. Do not panic. It simply means another background process on your computer is hogging your network port. It's just an environment issue, not a coding flaw. Next up, Section 3, the fast local test loop. First things first, we want to query our state. We run a couple quick commands to verify our key pair pub key and to check if our nice, clean local network has any funded accounts yet. Now, if you query your balance and it returns account not found, don't worry, that is actually totally normal on a fresh local validator. It just means you have a completely clean slate and you need to airdrop yourself some local test funds. Sadly, no, it's not real money, but it works perfectly for our testing. Then we get to my absolute favorite part, the ultimate financial dress rehearsal, the transaction simulation. A simulation is exactly what it sounds like. It's a dry run. It constructs and executes your transaction logic without actually signing it or broadcasting it out to the wider network. By just adding the --simulate flag to your command, you get amazing immediate feedback. You get to see the program logs and spot any runtime errors without risking a single real token or changing the state of your local blockchain. It's hands down the safest, fastest way to see if your program logic is actually doing what you want it to do. Which brings us to Section 4, fixing config versus code. This is arguably the most vital philosophical concept of this entire explainer: binary troubleshooting. We basically have to learn to split the world of debugging right down the middle. On one side, you have configuration issues like an unreachable RPC or a missing key pair. On the other side, you have program failures like runtime panics or constraint violations. Understanding exactly which side of the fence your error lives on, that will literally change your life as a developer. Let's actually test that philosophy for a second. If your ping returns a lightning-fast 1 millisecond response, but your transaction simulation fails with a custom error like insufficient funds, well, what do you do next? Think about it. Because your ping is fast, your config is perfect, that simulation error means you need to isolate and iterate on your program's source code. The network pipes are perfectly fine. The logic inside the code is flawed. So it really all boils down to this one absolute rule: failed ping, fix your environment. Failed simulation, debug your code.
This simple binary rule is going to save you countless hours of debugging noise. It's something we constantly emphasize across all our learning programs here at Forge College. Seriously, if you only memorize one thing today, make it this rule right here.
All right, final stage. Section 5, preparing for integration. Once your local fast loop is totally clean and your simulations are passing with flying colors, it is time to graduate. The workflow we're looking at here maps out exactly how to progress logically. You start with setup, you move to confirming the validator's listening, you drop into your local test fast loop, and only, and I mean only, when those logs look absolutely perfect, do you move on to integration. At that integration stage, you simply switch your endpoints. By using Solana config set --URL, you securely point your CLI away from your local machine and over to a shared DevNet or testnet. And you do all of this without leaking any of your local-only keys or secrets. It's a super clean, very secure transition. So let's quickly recap today's blueprint. Always check your configuration first so you can narrow down the problem space. Use those simulated dress rehearsals to safely trace faults before you broadcast anything. And cleanly separate your connectivity signals from your runtime signals. You are now officially ready for our next lesson, which is the introduction to the Solana CLI. But before you jump over to that one, make sure to open up your terminal and run these local checks yourself. Really build up that muscle memory. It absolutely pays off. Make sure to head over to forge.college to explore more Web3 resources, dive into our community, and level up your skills. As you boot up your local validator today, I want to leave you with a thought. When you run your very first dry run, what hidden runtime errors is your code hiding right now? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy building!